The other day, I attended the workshop by a UK-based consulting firm specialized in cross-cultural trust building. And I told my definition, a Japanese definition rather, of a trust. My definition, what I think Japanese thinks about trust. And what I said is commitment to promise. Please walk the talk. Don't say anything but you are not sure if you can do that or not. Because from my experiences of being betrayed many times by certain people in certain countries, even in the first meeting, they look very serious and they talk about contract and the fees and all the good things, but nothing happens. That's the best way to lose trust 100%. Commitment to trust. And the other day, another American person said on my webinar, when the American says, I can do it, that means 20%. But when a Japanese person says, yes, I can do it, that's 100%. This definition of trust, how does that sound in a European context?
Yeah, it sounds quite plausible. For me, trust has two components. One thing is cognitive trust, which means I can rely on you and you can rely on me, which means I give you a promise and I work on my promise. This is what I call cognitive trust. But I think there's even more, which I call affective trust. There's also an emotional aspect. And I think we should not forget this. This is something which is going between the lines. This is if I have the feeling I feel secure in your environment, or when I'm close to you, I feel comfortable. When I'm with you, I like to be with you. This is more than just cognitive trust. I think cognitive trust is the basis of doing business. If you are making promises, you should keep your promises. And this is, I think, very important for the Japanese. This shows your reliability. Right. But this is only the basis, I think. There could be even more. If people really like each other, means there's more to that than just this cognitive trust, what I call affective trust. There's a kind of feeling of emotional aspect as well to that. A cognitive trust is exactly what you said about keeping your promises.
So first clear the cognitive part, otherwise you cannot move further at all. And then if you can develop affective trust, of course, that touches the heart of many Japanese.
Exactly. And I think this cognitive trust, keeping the promises, is the logical basis of trust. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, he has written about that in one of his famous books, that this is the basis of cooperation. You keep your promises, I keep my promises. You can rely on me, I can rely on you, which is the basis of cooperation.
So that's why I deliberately said that commitment to trust, walking the talk, must be the very basic and important way to build trust across cultures.
I think it is. You're absolutely right. It's the basis. If you're a very nice person, a very nice guy, I like to be with you, but you don't keep your promises or you're not reliable, this is not a basis for cooperation, I think.
Okay. Now, EPA between Europe and Japan, there are some conferences starting to bring more investors to Japan and vice versa. How can European companies build business in Japan, do you think? In what areas, how they can assist the Japanese business?
Well, I think, of course, there are a lot of areas where Europe or Japan can benefit from each other, of course. And there are a lot of areas where you can have an interesting business, either in Japan or in Europe. It's vice versa. Maybe Europeans can help Japanese companies even more to globalize. Sometimes in some Japanese companies, they still have a very myopic thinking, which means only seeing the Japanese world still, but not the rest of the world, what's going on around them. And sometimes the expectations maybe of the Japanese headquarters does not fit European environment, the European world. People in Japanese headquarters have to be educated about the real situation in Europe. This is something that they sometimes don't know about. And this is, I think, a good aspect where the Europeans could teach the Japanese something. But if you ask me what are very good business opportunities areas, then maybe I'm not the right person to answer that question. There are a lot of fields where you could work in as a European company, and still Japan is one of the biggest markets, and Europe as well for the Japanese.
Okay, Thomas, thank you very much. I started out with points which I did not expect to mention. It just happened in my mind, but we had a very interesting conversation. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Do you have something that you wanted to say, but I didn't give you a chance to say or something about this topic?
When we started discussing about how the Japanese don't want to fight. They don't want to get involved into a heated discussion. I think there's something we Europeans can learn. Sometimes you can leave an opinion simply as it is. You don't always need to convince someone or persuade someone. Simply leave it as it is means just take it as a different perspective. This is something that we can learn from the Japanese. It's not necessary always to win an argument. We want to win an argument, and that's not necessary all the time. Sometimes there's a need to convince other people or to persuade them, of course, but sometimes you just can allow that there are different perspectives. It's simply your opinion. This is my opinion. We try to talk about it, but I don't want to win you over. And I think that's important.
Oh, that's very nice. That fits very well, I think, with the Japanese culture of appreciating and feeding the discussions, appreciating different ideas of all the members present at the meeting, and then bring them back for next round of internal meeting, another meeting, and then some concrete ideas will form, and then become kind of official, then come into a more pointed, discussion, rather than trying to talk like a machine gun in one meeting or two. Then we feel very put off or too much.
Exactly. I think you can learn to adapt your argumentation, to integrate the needs, the interests, and the opinions of the other people to get an even better proposal or presentation. And this is what you can learn from the Japanese.
Well, Japanese, not only their cultural foundation may be going very fragile, but also we need to learn, we want to have more fun at work also. The Japanese are famous to be a good drinker, a good communicator, but it's only after 5 o'clock. So one of my American friends before said, I want a Japanese businessman to be always drunk. So please, European people watching this conversation, take the Japanese out and ask them to find a nice, cozy place where they would open up more. So teach Japanese how to have fun at work. Okay, that's all. Thank you, Thomas, for your time today.
Thank you very much, Takashi.
Thank you very much.